Welcome back at the WPNinja Connect podcast episodes that we are recording live in Goossens at the moment. When published, the event is already done, but we have a lot of fun here with all the speakers and guests. My name is Frans Oudendorp, together with my co-host,
Pieter Dalmans.
Welcome to a new episode with new insights on... Which topic do we have, Peter?
At this podcast we have two distinguished guests, Tim de Keukelaere and Ken Goossens, all the way from Belgium. Part of the MC2MC Connect crew, so maybe we can also touch on that later. But let's discuss today around your session. Your session, you just delivered it. Building a secure Windows 11 endpoint with Intune. Is that possible?
Yes.
Yes.
We showed them how to do it.
And it was a full room. So
very convinced.
Really good.
And good feedback as well.
So thanks for having us. Yeah, it's been a pleasure presenting the session this morning. Indeed, Windows 11 security. We did a layered approach. So there are a couple of layers which we can tackle security on a Windows 11 device. And we started from the bottom. We started from the hardware layer, and we ended up in the cloud layer, and everything in between. So from the operating system to the applications. So we've touched, we only had 60 minutes, and there's so much ground to cover. So we touched a couple of key points, and hopefully the attendees got something to take away. So
we can have a session actually on every topic that we discussed. We can have a full hour session if you want to.
Have a complete track. Then
potentially,
maybe next year.
Maybe
next year. But if we talk on the first layer, the hardware layer. So you touched on TPM, secure boot,
the Bluetooth processor from Microsoft. So TPM, everybody is familiar with the trusted platform module. Of course, what can it do? What can it not do? How do you configure it? How do you configure it in a modern way? The firmware and BIOS needs to be configured. In the old days, we used to have like task sequences, specific vendor tools which we integrated, and when the device left the deployment bench, everything was configured. And we discussed now, how do you do that in a more modern approach where you have, for example, autopilot for device provisioning? What can you do? So natively in Intune, we have configuration profiles, but that's only for Dell. And then, of course, we need to pitch a little bit of other tools that vendors provide, like the Lenovo Commercial Vantage and things like that. That's what
HP
we discussed.
Connect, maybe.
Yeah, HP also has, every vendor has his set of tools. And I think now as an IT admin, it's the art and craft to figure out how to integrate those in a modern managed environment, building Win32 apps to support specific features and things like that. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. And it starts by the hardware, right? Otherwise, if your BIOS is open, everybody can screw with your security measurements. So
it's always challenging. One thing, for example, which we didn't cover, again, we were limited in time. There's so much ground. But for example, keeping things up to date, firmware updates, driver updates. Intune has capabilities to manage those, but again, it's a completely different approach to what some of us have been used to in the past. So also that we didn't even touch it, but also a very interesting topic.
So what would you do? Use Intune drivers and firmware updates, or do you like more the controlled approach via Win32 apps or via maybe the third-party vendor tooling?
I think there's a lot of dependencies there as well. It depends. If for example, larger organizations which I visit, which have an extensive IT team or a workplace team, I think they often go for the granular approach, and they build some packages and they know what's out there up to the last digit. If you see teams which are running on a skeleton crew, there the Intune capabilities at least offer something. So you have the drivers which are being vetted also by Microsoft, so not only by the vendor, which are offered. There is a review capability in there where you say, okay, I do want an extra level of control where I do have a check myself. Yep. So there are different levels, a lot of control or fully automated, and of course each comes with responsibilities and workload and risks. So that's it. Yeah.
We see more and more customers also using AutoPatch for that. They enroll their devices in Windows AutoPatch, they get the quality updates, they get the Edge updates, they get the M365 monthly enterprise channel updates, and now more and more customers start to adopt driver and firmware management as well. Most of them do it manual, so they go manually through the list of drivers that are being detected. We don't see a lot of companies using automatic probably for known reasons, right? You don't want that suddenly a bad network driver breaks your VPN connection and potentially shut down an entire company for getting back to the on-site network, right? So yeah, more and more companies start using that, which is a good thing, I think. We are also working heavily on investing enhancements in that area because we are not done yet. There's still something to do in terms of reporting, exposing APIs, all that stuff. So yeah, these are areas that we're...
One of the feedback I often get from customers is regarding to drivers firmware updates, that it is not always up to par on what's downloadable from, for instance, HP. It takes a while. Is that more the issue of the vendor submitting, or is that the vetting process which takes a while before it comes
I think it's a combination of both. Vendors obviously prioritize their own environment first, their own tools first. Then they upload it to the Microsoft catalog. Obviously, then there is a validation process that needs to happen. So yeah, it's a combination of both.
Yeah. But then again, if it's available via the driver updates, then you know it is tested. And
yeah, of course.
In what ways do cloud-based security solutions augment the built-in protections of Windows 11, and why is this integration crucial in today's threats landscape?
Well, more and more companies focus on zero trust networking capabilities, right? And obviously, if you want to be zero trust, you need to use modern security tools. You can't get a zero trust working with your legacy security tools on the device. So hence, it's super important, I think, to leverage what is new, making sure you have that zero trust approach. And I think in the end, once you are in a good shape and you have a zero trust environment, you have customers, financial customer even, that are using zero cloud native. It just works, and it's less complex than it was before as well, because everything integrates super well into the Microsoft ecosystem today. So for companies or people that are still doubting about moving to zero trust, I would highly recommend them to look into it, because in the end they will end up with a more secure endpoint for their users. Yeah.
True. Yeah, definitely. So what common security misconfigurations do you both see at large Windows 11 implementations, deployments, which can easily avoid it?
So many. It's difficult to pick one out, but one of the things in general that I see is like you immediately notice when people started off and wanted to take shortcuts and wanted to take the short route to a secure endpoint. And the thing is, for example, implementing baselines, we touched that during the session as well, and you have the Microsoft baseline, and sometimes it's wrongly evangelized as well. We have to admit that people say, okay, just implement this and it's going to be fine. That's not the case, because at the end of the day, you're just releasing something on your entire estate and you don't know what it actually does on your endpoint and what it configures. So that's a really common mistake in any sense. Making shortcut never does any good to your estate, I think. So what I typically recommend my customers is take the time, use the baseline from Microsoft. It's been built on best practices. It has good advice. Use it, understand it, and build your own baselines based on that information, but nudge it, tweak it to your own needs, and at least in that process, you will gain knowledge and you will start understanding what you are implementing.
And document it. Why you're changing maybe
and also
a setting.
Mix and match, because you have the Microsoft security baseline, but there are a lot of other best practices out there. This is level 1, for example, and then there are others as well, which you can combine. I use the example of, there's a GitHub repository from Hardening Kitty, which I used, which has a lot of good security baselines, not only for Windows. I mean, if you have no starting point at all and you just open that one up, your homework is 80% done. You just need to tweak it and look at it and mix and match with your environment, and you will have a really good security stance, and you will know what it's built upon. And that's a very common thing that I see.
Yeah. Also, firewall policies, for example, firewall rules. Whenever you have a conflict, you can have multiple firewall rules policies. But whenever there is a policy conflicting one of the 2 or the 3 that you have, the policy will just not apply. So then customers are like, I have 3 policies here, and why do they not apply on my device? Then when you start looking into the policies, you see that there are conflicts, and obviously when there's a conflict, it's not being merged, so it's not being sent to the device. Same for attack surface reduction. It works pretty much the same thing. If you have a conflict, it's
Yeah.
just not being added to the device. So these are common mistakes that we see. Like, hey, we have that policy, or we have 2 or 3 policies. They're not landing on the devices. Why? We know that probably that is because they have a conflict in the policy.
Yeah, and also during the life cycle, in a support scenario, for example, that you see that, okay, something is not functioning because of security being applied. And the easy way out, of course, is unapplying those security measures. But then at the end of the day, you're introducing, again, security risk. So we touched about, for example, adminless. If you have EPM and certain processes don't work anymore, well, yeah, what can you do? You can disable EPM on specific devices, or you can start whitelisting processes in a proper way. It takes additional effort, it takes time, it takes maintenance, but again, you maintain your security stance while allowing your users to use the tools that they want to use. So again, a common mistake, taking a shortcut, taking the easy route, disabling security features just for functionality. It's not always the best thing to do. So, yeah.
I totally agree with that. But on the other hand, security and enhancements sometimes impact user experiences. How do you balance robust security with maintaining productivity and usability for end users?
Yeah, it's finding the middle ground. It's something that we mentioned during the session as well. And to me, that's a continuous work. Everything evolves. The platform evolves. The application evolves. Also, the security capabilities evolve. And finding the balance. A common mistake that I see is that people want to go for the one-size-fits-all approach, and that doesn't work either. You have to define personas. I touched, for example, kiosk devices. You can configure those in a completely different way than an office worker device, can make it more secure. So use the security capabilities of the platform, and Microsoft and other vendors, use them to their best usage. Don't try to implement the one-size-fits-all, but work in a granular way. I think that's a common thing to do, to find that balance. It's not an easy one.
No.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
True. Yeah. Good questions. So, what are the key takeaways from your session you already had?
I think one of the key takeaways that I would want to share with the audience is start looking into Windows Hello for Business. It's super important, and it's going to be more important in the future when we create new enhanced security features. For example, personal data encryption is one of the new features that we are going to introduce that will leverage Windows Hello Enhanced Sign-In. So that's like the next step of Windows Hello, meaning that you will not have access to your files unless your face is scanned, and then your files will unlock. Local admin protection as well, for example, is also going to leverage Windows Hello for Business Enhanced Sign-In. So you see more and more of these security features going to leverage Windows Hello for Business. So I think it's super important that companies that are not looking into that today, that they are really starting to prepare for that. And I think I mentioned that during the session as well.
Are there a lot of companies still not using Windows Hello for Business? If you look at telemetry?
We still see that a lot of customers are looking into it, but not having it enrolled globally. I think Belgium and the Netherlands are pretty exceptional in that case. More and more customers are using it, but when we look at a global scale, it's weird, because I think Windows Hello for Business is super convenient. I wouldn't be able to operate without it anymore, honestly. Well, okay, I'm overreacting a little bit now maybe, but it's just so convenient, right? You get in front of your PC, you do Control-Delete. Oh, hi Ken. It signs me in. You don't need to do anything anymore. So the advantage, the user experience enhances a lot with it. And now we can even enhance additional security features with it. So yeah, I think definitely something.
Is that maybe a cultural thing? I don't want my biometrics on my device, or
things like
Microsoft
that,
have my biometrics, which is not the case.
No, it's not. It's just stored in the TPM, right? Yeah.
That's
misperception and sticking to the old rules, the old tools. You just mentioned in the session you don't know your password for 3 years. Yeah, it's because you've gone through that adoption in the early phases. But people, office workers, we are all tech savvy. We understand, and we're keen to try new things, and we see the added value and the benefits from it. But in all honesty, the receptionist working in a planner, working with mail, working with office applications, they're not tech savvy. They're not keen. They're not that aware. They're not demanding, and probably change averse. They don't like changes. Something is different on a Monday morning. Oh, my God! And that's why companies sometimes are reluctant to adopt to these new things.
Yeah.
Yeah, hybrid environments with on-prem resources could be potentially an issue to activate Windows Hello for Business. I think all the techniques are there to deliver it.
Mhm.
But I can imagine that it's a bit more difficult to enable Windows Hello for Business on a hybrid environment. I think nowadays with Cloud Key Trust and all the new things that we have, it's super easy to enable it. But I don't think everyone is aware of that.
True. Yeah, absolutely true. Cloud Kerberos is super easy, obviously, to set up. But obviously, your on-prem applications need to support certificate authentication at that point, right?
Yeah.
So, and that is a problem that we see, that these legacy applications doesn't support certificate-based authentication, and then it fails. But there is obviously, I think there are ways to work around it. But yeah, it's a huge project. It costs money for a company as well to invest in that. So that there are all assumptions that you as a CIO then in a company need to take and.
Yeah, it doesn't need to stop you from implementing Windows Hello. So please reach out to consultants or people who are here on the table or attending this event, because people are knowing what to do and how they can help you. Other question: what role does training and end user education play an overall role in the security of endpoints? And how can organizations effectively implement that?
Yeah, it's a good one. And when we talk about that, I always refer to there's a comic. It's been around for quite some time, where you see like this boxing ring, a boxing arena, and in the blue corner you see all the security IT appliances, tools, solutions, and in the other corner you see the user with a red shirt on, like, this is Bob, the end user, and all the security measures in the world. If your user is not educated, they're kind of rendered useless. You're taking away usability. You're taking away the ease of use of the device. You have to make them understand, and then they're your best evangelist. If you can adopt, if you can convince them from the added value, if you can show them why you are implementing this, I think that's half of the game. That's how you win. If you don't inform them at all and you just make it more complex for them and introduce new things that they don't understand, they will react in an adverse way and they will push it away and they'll say, it's not functioning anymore. And then you end up in the situation where security measurements are loosened to make your end user community happy again. And half of your project is not successful.
Yeah.
It's a difficult one. Yeah.
But I think the good thing about Microsoft in this place, in the workplace, is that it integrates well. Windows integrates well with Microsoft Defender, and Intune integrates well. So I guess you guys are doing a lot of investment in that area also.
The ecosystem is important, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. I think we see a lot of customers using third-party tools for everything, right? They have Windows, then they use a third-party identity provider. They use a Ivanti for policy assignment, for example. They have like everything, and then they come to us and they complain and they say, hey, this is taking time. This is not going forward. This is giving me headaches. What? And then you start asking questions like, okay, tell me a little bit more about your environment. And then, we have an agent X, we have an agent Y, we have an agent Z. And you need to let them talk to each other.
Yeah.
And that is super complicated. Well, if you look into the Microsoft ecosystem, I think we cover most of the spectrum today. But a lot of companies are like scared to put their money in one bucket, which I also understand, of course.
Single vendor approach.
So that comes with complexity, right? Because then you need to start looking into third-party tools and third-party identity controls, for example, which is sometimes a real pain in like Okta, for example. Okay, it integrates amazingly in Entra ID, but if you then want to go and use Windows Hello for Business, it's just a lot of work to make it work. Whether if you stay within the Microsoft ecosystem, things are just really simple. It's just a few clicks, a few switches that you need to turn around, and you're up and ready to go. So, stick to the ecosystem and enjoy the flexibility of it and the ease of configuring it, I would say. And it's easy for me to say, of course, being a Microsoft employee, but I think we see most successful customers with less end-user disruption are the ones that are actually using the E3, E5 stack as a whole. They are the most successful customers. Also for migration projects, they have the foundations are in place. So for them, moving to new versions of Windows is just super easy because they don't need to care about third-party tools and vendors and this is going to break in a new version it just works because it's one ecosystem.
Yeah, the testing cycle is a lot smaller. Yeah. If you look at the customers you have now, or what kind of security measurement you think could be beneficial for a customer right now and easy to implement? Basically, a no-brainer when it comes to Windows, of course. We touched on Windows Hello. That should be a no-brainer.
Yeah. Credential Guard, in my honest opinion, as well. Obviously, customers with old PEEP protocol or cheap protocols, authentication against Wi-Fi, will obviously have failures. So they will need to change on the network infrastructure a couple of things. But I think Credential Guard is definitely a no-brainer. Secure boot, UEFI, which most customers already use today.
Things like the stupid things, but things like device encryption, to me that's normal, that your device has encryption, but also for removable storage. It's so easy to implement policies to protect your data. I mean, where does your data roam? It's always the same, but if you don't have any policies, what's preventing an end user from taking a USB stick, copying your corporate secrets and dumping it somewhere at a competitor? I mean, it takes literally half an hour to build a policy in Intune, deploy it to your devices, force the use of encryption when somebody inserts a removable storage device. I mean, this to me is a no-brainer. You're not blocking your end user from using the storage device. You're just adding a small layer of security on top of it. And to me, it's common sense, but when I come to a new customer, I typically run a specific tool that documents the whole environment. I go to the document, and I'm sometimes so surprised that even the small steps have not been taken yet. And okay, as a consultant, it's easy to stay because you're always coming in from the same angle with the same perspective. But an end user, an IT admin, typically is not just the Intune admin or the MDE administrator. They're also the printer admin. They do the network stuff. They do the IP cameras. They do 60, 70, 80% of their day, they do other stuff than managing their devices. So it's logical that they don't get to the details.
What advice would you give to IT pros that are advocating for enhanced security measures within their organizations? So not the consultancy part, but the IT pros in organizations to leverage the security measurements that you have presented this morning.
What I personally do at my customers, I always look for good examples. I mean, every morning when you look online, if you have a couple of news sites that focus on security, there's always an example. A company that has a data leak, a company that was breached, an environment that's been down for 3 days because of malware being spread out. They're your best advocates, in my opinion. Do you want to be on the headliner the next morning, or do you want to at least... Reducing everything for 100%, that's not possible, but you can mitigate. You can at least reduce the risk, and that's the only way to do it is through the security features and trying to convince your management that, hey, this is what happened, understand the technique, understand how to mitigate it, with which tools that we can do that. And what we also see, if you have an E5 license, how many people are effectively using all the capabilities within the range of that license? It's not a lot of them. That's you have the tools, but you just don't use them because you haven't gotten to it. You don't know why. You don't know the purpose.
Well, the security department has a different tool also, which they already use for years and years.
And Francois, you said like, okay, how can you help IT pros that are really want to advocate for you with it? Yeah. So we had some cases where we were talking to admins and they said like, we see the benefits, but we just can't get it approved And then it's just a matter of having the CIO or the CISO in the call and make sure that they really understand why it is important that they need to enable X, Y, and Z.
Okay.
So it's just going a step up and tell them like, look, I'm here to support you. Let me be in front of CIO, CISO, and let's have a discussion with them and see what we can do in order to help you. That's basically how we...
Ironically, what I see, those people, the VIP, is the most difficult end user to convince because they use typically exotic devices. They're the ones with the most fancy tablet, the newest devices, things like that, and they can store data and they can do things. I had an example at a customer, I think a couple of weeks ago, and they used the Remarkable devices. So Remarkable is like a digital notebook that you can use. But you now also have an agent on there which you can use to cloud sync the data on the Remarkable device. That's pretty cool, but that data is again unmanaged.
Yeah.
They weren't aware of it. They've been using, VIP users been using the device for quite some time already. And there's God knows where all those notes, which are probably sensitive information.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are good examples to try to convince.
Yeah. Call to action for people who are listening to this episode. What are the immediate steps our listeners can take after this podcast to start enhancing their endpoint security?
They can hire us, Frans. That's the easy answer.
That's the easy answer, but...
They can just reach out to me. I provide assistance and feedback for free.
Great feedback.
Is there one thing to start with on Windows 11 or Intune?
I would say make sure you have the security defaults in Windows 11 enabled, because we see a lot of customers that are trying to bypass that and don't do it. Just start already with the security defaults and you will be already in a decent shape, and then look at easy enablement things, right? BitLocker, super easy to enable. Windows Hello for Business, super easy to enable. You can create some attack surface reduction rules, pretty easy actually to just configure them if you don't hit any conflicts, of course. But they're just those small things that doesn't take a lot of time. Just enable them and test it out, and then try and put it on a
I think we missed one important part there, where we typically knowing what's out there. We touched in our session compliance, for example, where you have slider-based, really good templates, the basics that Ken just mentioned. And you can just put a compliance policy out there, and at least you get a view on what's out there, because a lot of people just don't know. I mean, the device was okay when it left the bench, when it left the IT room, it was perfectly configured. But 6 months later, nobody can guarantee that settings are all still applied.
True.
And that's where compliance, which is a really straightforward feature in Intune, can help you. And you can start with the templates, and we talked about custom compliance as well. You can make it as complex and as deep as you want.
Yeah.
And that way you have your point-in-time reference, and you have finger on the pulse, we say in Dutch. You can keep monitoring your environment and see how well the patient is doing. Is he improving or is he deteriorating in health? That's
Yep. Well said.
So start with securing your endpoint. Basically, that's the message. Even if that's BitLocker or Windows Hello, it doesn't matter. But start secure your endpoint.
Of course.
Especially in today's day and age. Again, the headlines every morning that they're, you don't want to be that company.
I totally agree.
And now with AI as well, the attackers are becoming more and more sophisticated, because obviously AI is a good thing, but there's also AI that is being leveraged by people with bad intentions, right?
Yeah.
So
there's the downside of
more and more
of all that capabilities that we have nowadays. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
That's a good topic also. What I see, I think the last month at customers, a lot of concerns about the usage of AI. I mean, people use ChatGPT, they get a mail, they just plainly copy-paste the content from the mail in ChatGPT, okay?
That's why you need to use Microsoft Copilot, Tim. This is enterprise controls in place.
But even there, do you want your data? At least you want to know what you're sharing or what you're running through the service. It's an important one.
But if you have that and you run it within your environment,
Defender can also help with that. The Defender suite, Defender for Cloud Apps, can help you block access to certain sites. And then you build your own Copilot solution, enterprise ready, but with boundaries that you are aware of. Again, new technology, everybody jumps on it. People use it at home, people use it at work, but they don't realize the potential risks.
True.
Awareness.
Yeah, and I think it's totally different topic, but know what data is used and can be accessed by someone. Really important to keep an eye on that.
The whole AI, let's say tsunami, can I call it a tsunami? It actually triggered the topic DLP, the data loss protection, which is also a very big hurdle to take for an organization. And people for years now have pushed it forward. Yeah, about the labeling and the sensitivity and the things and the policies and stuff. But now you have a robot crawling your data, crawling your estate. If you don't have DLP, it's again something new triggers a whole wave of.
Okay. Any other thing? I think we've covered
it all.
Most of the things.
Yep.
So thanks, guys, for joining us in this recording. Many thanks.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure.
And if you like this video, like and subscribe, and you will see the next videos coming up of the Workplace Ninja Connect episodes, podcast episodes. And really look forward. If you have feedback, please leave them so we can learn from each other and move forward and make things better. So thanks for now. Until next time.